Anti-aging frames biology as something to fight, something to correct, something to reverse or override. And that's just a losing game. Aging is not a malfunction, right? It's a process, it's a privilege.
Welcome to the One Thing podcast with Dr. Adam Rindy, where we strip away the noise, focus on the one thing that actually moves your health forward. Most skincare advice focuses on what you can see: wrinkles, texture, tone. But today's guest argues that by the time you see those changes, the real problem has already been developing for years beneath the surface. Dr. Lily Shapiro is a trained pharmacist who spent years in finance before diving deep into the science of skin health. After analyzing hundreds of human clinical trials, she built a framework that looks at skin not as a cosmetic issue, but as a biological system. We talk about the 4 core drivers of skin longevity: collagen integrity, antioxidant balance, lipid barrier function, and mitochondrial health, and why focusing on just one of these can actually backfire. We also unpack some of the biggest myths in the supplement and skincare space, including the truth about collagen, hyaluronic acid, and why more isn't always better when it comes to antioxidants. This is a deep, science-backed conversation, but one that gives you practical ways to think about your skin for the long term. Hope you enjoy this week's episode. We join the conversation in progress.
Dr. Shapiro, welcome to the One Thing podcast. It's so great to be here with you today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. One of the things I really am interested in hearing just from the start of our conversation and getting to know you offline is this perception that people might have about skincare and skin health. It sort of falls into this bucket of anti-aging that we hear in the world. And you've, just from the jump, you've explained that's the wrong framework to be looking at a discussion like this. Why is that? Because I find that very refreshing.
Yeah, that's a great question, Adam. So anti-aging frames biology as something to fight, something to correct, something to reverse or override. And that's just a losing game. Aging is not a malfunction, right? It's a process. It's a privilege. A lot of times you hear that phrase and it's true. And what actually determines outcomes is whether the underlying systems are supported or stressed. So I don't think of it in terms of anti-aging. I think of it in terms of, we talk about health span, right? The quality of the years that you're alive. So I think of skin in terms of skin span.
Mm-hmm. That's very helpful, because I think we have this sense with other organs of the body of that kind of health span of organs. And I think working with the skin in that way is a very helpful framework. So skin longevity or skin lifespan, how would you say conventional skincare thinks? How's that different? What do we usually hear from the conventional skincare world?
Yes. So conventional skincare tends to chase visible fixes, right? Wrinkles, tone, texture. The way I think about skin in terms of skin span, skin longevity, it's about how well skin maintains its structure, its barrier integrity, its hydration, its pigment balance, and its repair capacity over not months, but years and decades.
Okay. So like a typical dermatologist or esthetician that's learning about how to care for patients with skin issues, I mean, are they thinking about supporting biology at all? Or I'm sure they're trained to understand the biology, but do they typically have the ability to support the biology of the skin's needs in their practice?
The industry is moving in that direction because people are starting to talk about beauty from within, right? This whole concept of affecting outside change from the inside. Because topicals definitely have a place, but they're complementary, right? To kind of internal support. Topicals sit on the outside of the skin, the epidermis. Sometimes they may affect change in the dermis, but really it's the outer layer. And if you want to target the cells on the cellular level, you have to go from the inside in.
And so when you're with your framework with the inside in, is that deeper than like the classic layers of the skin, or are you talking about like whole body, or are you talking about like the whole system of the skin?
So I've actually named the framework, the acronym is CALM, CALM. And so C stands for collagen integrity, right? It's the scaffolding, it's the structure underneath the skin. And if that matrix is depleted, no serum can fake firmness in the long term, right? So C stands for collagen integrity. A is antioxidant balance,
Mm.
right? So skin is constantly exposed to UV, right? To digital light, and that generates oxidative stress. And if that load is not controlled, aging accelerates no matter how good your routine, your 10-step routine looks. The next letter is L, calm. L is for lipid barrier. So ceramides and barrier lipids determine whether skin can hold hydration and can tolerate the actives that you're putting on top.
Mhm.
And then finally, the M in calm is mitochondrial function and
Mm.
cellular energy. So repair, turnover, recovery, they all depend on it. So that's sort of the framework.
Let me unpack this a bit more. The CALM framework Dr. Shapiro just described maps directly into what we know about the biology of skin aging. Collagen, the C, starts declining at roughly 1% per year from your mid to late 20s. That's a slow change, but by midlife, it's significant. The A, antioxidant balance, matters because UV exposure, pollution, and even blue light from screens generate oxidative stress that accelerates the decline. The L, lipid barrier, is the skin's protective seal, about 50% ceramides, 25% cholesterol, 25% fatty acids, and when it degrades, moisture escapes and irritants get in. And the M, mitochondrial function, is the same story we've been told about every other organ on this show. Cellular energy is the engine behind repair, turnover, and recovery. What I love about this framework is that it gives us a systems view of the skin, not just a cosmetic one.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, it's exciting to hear this because when I'm personally trying to solve skin issues, patients will come to me wanting something other than a steroid or what have you. And we always discuss about sort of these foundational aspects of skin health and how to support the organ versus sort of suppress inflammation. So this is really, I love that framework, and that's an easy acronym to remember.
Yeah.
So going off that CALM acronym, when with those particular, say, systems in place, typically, let's say the antioxidant system and the lipid barrier system and the collagen and the mitochondria, when we come out of the womb, are in a good place, what happens to them over the lifespan? Like, what are the main things that kind of pop up that starts to implement or damage those systems? Like, when does that start?
Sorry, Adam, I don't understand the question.
Oh, okay, no problem. Let me reframe that. So basically, I'll start over. So when you're looking at those four aspects of the CALM acronym, when do we start to see in the lifespan the most dysfunction start to accelerate? Like, does it happen as early as the 20s, the 30s? When do we start to see that dysfunction start to require more and more attention?
Yeah. So look, I can't give you a specific age, right? But we know that midlife changes happen, especially for women, right? And those are hormonally driven. Those are, you know, mostly hormonally driven, actually. But the common wisdom sort of says that you start losing and producing less and less collagen and elastin starting in your mid to late 20s.
Mm,
And so the very rough number that, you hear people talk about is 1% of collagen every year from your mid to late 20s.
mm,
It's a gradual but progressive thing.
hmm. So you mentioned hormone changes. Like I hear people bring up their skin most commonly in, the 30s and mid 40s, both men and women. Can you talk about what's happening when people are starting to see shifts in their, say, their reproductive hormones? How's that affecting the skin?
Well, so let me focus on the women because that's a little kind of more straightforward, I think,
Yeah.
even though it's a lot more complex. Estrogen plays a role in collagen synthesis, it plays a role in lipid production, in hydration, in antioxidant defense repair, all of it. And as levels fluctuate and decline, and this starts to happen in perimenopause, right? So late 30s, early 40s, all of those systems, they shift at once. And women are often told this is cosmetic when it's actually a fundamental biological transition that affects skin function.
Hmm.
Let me unpack this a bit more. This surprises a lot of people. Perimenopause begins as early as the late 30s. But here's why it matters so much for skin specifically. Estrogen isn't just a reproductive hormone. It plays a direct role in collagen synthesis, lipid production, skin hydration, and antioxidant defense. So when estrogen begins to fluctuate, which happens years before the last menstrual period, all four pillars of the calm framework start shifting simultaneously. It is not one thing changing, it's the whole system moving at once. And because these changes are gradual and hormonally driven, they're often dismissed as normal aging when they're actually a distinct biological transition that deserves direct clinical attention. I refer you to our episodes with Laura Bryden on menopause for further information on that topic.
Yeah. And I think when this is taking place, like a lot of issues that are associated with lifespan or aging, um, they just, in a sense, get brushed aside in a lot of ways. And I'm wondering if you've studied or reflected on the impact that these skin changes have on our mental health and just our well-being otherwise, and what's the deep impact so people can really understand to take these concerns seriously.
I think for a long time, these changes have been dismissed as just aging, right?
Mm,
And in order taught people to doubt their own experience, right? Because you hear a lot of times women saying, yeah, I'm not imagining it. Things are changing. This is happening. That is happening. And the medical community was just, I don't know, it was just not, it wasn't the conversation that we were having. Right. And I think that's evolving and changing. But, and I think that's a net positive for everyone. Right.
hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I've listened to some lectures on the impact of skin on our mental health, and I think like all things with aging, in a sense, can be affect our self-esteem and our confidence, and just in general, our we're looking at ourselves in the mirror each day and we're seeing that our body is going through various changes. And there's a sense of agency, I think, in knowing that just like your heart, like your bones, like your muscles, like your blood sugar, that there's something you can do to guide this part of your body through, a kind of a healthy aging process. Do you find that people, when they're using your products or take an active role in their skincare, do you find that it affects people's mental health and well-being once they start to see that things are going in a better direction for them?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, look, I launched my product end of August. We're now beginning mid-January. So there's a group of people that have been taking it for about 4 months. And I generally guide people to say, look, these changes, they take time. It's not a miracle product, but it does work because it's very deeply rooted in science and human clinical evidence. And I guide people to about 90 days before they start seeing visible changes. And I'm starting to get a lot of feedback now about people saying, look, my skin tone completely cleared up. A lot of people are telling me it's making their hair grow actually.
Hmm.
And that's one woman told me that somebody asked her if she got hair extension, right? So and this woman is in her, I believe she's 60. And so to be 60 and to have someone ask you if you got hair extensions, I mean, that's pretty exciting, right? I imagine. So
Yeah.
I can't speak for everyone, but it seems that as people are seeing these visual changes in their skin, their nails, their hair, they feel better about themselves, right? Especially women who are either going through menopause or have gone through menopause or in perimenopause, and they're seeing all these changes, and it's kind of depressing, right?
Yeah.
How do you just collapse?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the reason I'm doubling down on this question is that, I mean, I think it's an underappreciated outcome for having skin, having a role in the health of your skin and feeling like you have impact over your skin health. So I personally hope people that we understand that and factor that into our outcomes. So you're a pharmacist by training,
I am.
and which is exciting for me because, talking to someone who's formulating solutions and coming up with ingredients and why to use certain ingredients and products. I'm sure, this is like your main thing is like knowing how to do that. And so I'm curious with your particular products, you moved away from these sort of single ingredient or hero solutions to more of kind of a well thought out formulation. Can you talk about why you moved in that direction? Because some people who are science oriented, really like just that single ingredient because you can measure outcomes. But it seems like you have more of a broader formulation strategy.
Well, maybe it makes sense to step back just a little bit to tell you about why this product even exists. So, I'm trained as a pharmacist. I graduated pharmacy school in 2004, but I haven't worked as a pharmacist since 2008.
Okay.
When I went to business school and when I graduated, I pivoted to Wall Street. And so I've been in finance up until August 2025. And this product, I really formulated it for myself, for my own skin. 46 now. I was in my early 40s. And I really, I was starting to see the changes in my skin, my hair. And I wanted to understand, okay, what has actual human clinical data behind it? And what is just marketing hype and noise? And biohacking, supplements, it's so trendy right now, but a lot of it is just marketing. And I have the training, so I think in a certain way, right? I think in terms of human data, I think in terms of dosing, right? A lot of times you don't hear people talk about dosing. And to me, that's the most important thing. I think about contamination, ingredient purity, right? And so I did a lot of research and I must have gone through, it was a few hundred clinical trials, right? Results to try to understand which ingredients actually have science behind them. And I'll give an example. For example, we often think of biotin as kind of like a beauty supplement, but it turns out that there's absolutely zero evidence that is true. is deficient in biotin, yes, you may see some changes, you may see some improvements in certain areas. But if you're not deficient, which most people, if you eat healthy, you're just not, right? It's doing absolutely nothing. And the market, how many products out there have biotin or market biotin?
So many. Yeah.
Let me unpack this a little bit more about biotin. Dr. Shapiro just said something that most supplement companies don't want you to hear. Biotin has no proven benefit for hair or skin in people who aren't actually deficient. And genuine deficiency is rare in anyone eating a reasonably balanced diet. The reason biotin is in almost every hair and skin supplement has more to do with regulation than science. In the US, supplement manufacturers don't actually have to prove efficacy before going to market. They just have to avoid making disease claims. So biotin became the beauty supplement shorthand because it sounds scientific, it's relatively inexpensive to include in formulas, and no one can be penalized for putting it in. There's also practical risk worth knowing. High-dose biotin can interfere with thyroid and hormone blood tests, producing false readings. So if you're supplementing with biotin and getting blood work done, mention this to your doctor.
And it's all marketing. And so I dug into the research to try to understand, what should I be taking at what dose, right? What's supported by clinical research, and who are the trusted brands? And I did that. And it was a big project, actually. But I came up with this beautiful cocktail. And the cocktail worked, right? I started taking it, I started seeing changes. But it was really hard for me to actually take all the pills because it was literally a bowl of pills.
Yeah.
And, what I would do, I was working from home the last 5 years since COVID. So, I have my computer set up, I have a bowl of pills next to me, and I look at it throughout the day, and I just mentally try to get myself to take some of these pills. And I just can't do it, right? Pills make me nauseous. Like, I hate it. And I thought, okay, why doesn't a product like this exist where it's sort of like an AG1, right? Where it's a powder, one scoop daily, but it's for skin health, and it's got all the right ingredients and all the right doses of the highest purity and quality. And so that was kind of where the idea was born, because I wanted to make the product for myself.
Yeah.
And so the idea was, I'm going to make it for myself so I can take it.
Yeah.
And then, maybe I open a Shopify store, I throw it on there. If people want to buy it, great. But I have my career. I was helping to run a machine learning hedge fund. Right?
Yeah.
I had a job. I had I'm raising 2 kids. Like, I did not need to become an entrepreneur. But when I brought the product to life, I really thought, okay, this is the future of dermatology. This is something completely different. The way I'm thinking about skin health, no one is talking about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so let's now get back to your question. Why is it a systems-based approach? Because our bodies are complex and our bodies are a system, right? So skin longevity is, I like to think of it like running a house, right? Structure is the walls. Barrier lipids is the roof. Antioxidants are, let's say, the wiring protection. And cellular repair is the plumbing. So if you have a leaky, drafty house, do you fix it by upgrading your sofa? No. There are a lot of inputs that you need. And so your body is the same. There are a lot of inputs and they all work together. And so it's a system. And I developed a system it's very intentional. It's very thoughtfully put together, where one thing complements the other.
Yeah. So, I think, first of all, just to remark on your own journey and how you got here today, I think how exciting for people that are benefiting from your background and your training, and then your own personal need that you put your background and your training and your own personal need, and you put it into action. And then on top of that, to realize that the whole bowl of pills issue is so problematic, and lots of people can relate to that. So schedule like a whole half hour of your day to swallow all your supplements. And it's not a very pleasant experience at all. So Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think it's underappreciated that supplement companies can throw anything in a bottle, and a lot of the formulators aren't going off research studies and dosing and mechanisms. It's sort of just like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and they put together a formula that has a good philosophy behind it. To take it the next step, the best formulas and supplements I've seen are from people who designed it for their own needs, that have the chops to be able to do that. I have a couple examples in my industry of people who've done that, and their products or supplements have done really well. And from an outcome standpoint, and not just from people using their products. So that's exciting. And then, the systems approach, I mean, that example you gave, I think I'd like to just kind of go into a few of these aspects a little bit more, because I'm sort of a science nerd, and I do think of the skin from a lot of angles. I think of it from the gut skin axis. Think of it from the gut hormone axis. I'm sorry, the skin hormone axis. And then I've really learned a lot about these lipids. And I'm curious if you could just comment on what people might be surprised to hear about, the omegas of the skin and the different lipids that are involved, if you don't mind.
Yeah. A lot of conversation now that I hear, kind of like I'm following a lot of dermatologists on social media,
Yeah.
right? And I'm listening to what they're talking about. And a lot of people are talking about the lipid barrier, right? And with good reason. It's really important. It's sort of what it helps to protect, right? Your body, your skin. And the lipid barrier is made, it's about 50% ceramides, 25% cholesterol, and then 25% lipids, more or less, right? And when people talk about hydration, people talk about it in all different ways, right? You hear people talking about hyaluronic acid, boosting hydration. But mechanistically, that makes zero sense. But people know hyaluronic acid, it's kind of a trendy word. So you put it into a sentence with hydration and great, right? But in reality, hydration, what is it? It's your ability, it's your skin's ability to keep the moisture in, to keep the water in, right?
Mhm.
That's what hydration is. And if your skin barrier is intact, then your body is able to retain the moisture to it. And that's where you get the hydration, the plumpness, the glow, let's call it. And just going back to sort of ingredient selection, I made a very conscious choice not to include hyaluronic acid in my formulation. And I can go into why. There's very clear reasons for why I did that. And I included instead ceramides, and it's actually a patented product. It's a beautiful ingredient from France. Ceramicides is the trademark name, and really strong clinical data for skin, how it just helps to replenish your skin barrier by supplying the skin those ceramides. That
Mhm.
barrier is 50% ceramides. And people are seeing really good results for hydration as a result of that in a couple of weeks. And the same ingredient has really strong human clinical data for hair as well. And that's why people are
Mm.
seeing hair growth and fullness, even though I'm not marketing the product for hair.
Let me unpack this a little bit more. Dr. Shapiro made a pointed claim that hyaluronic acid boosting hydration mechanistically makes zero sense. Let me add additional nuance to that. She's largely right, but it depends on molecular weight. High molecular weight hyaluronic acid, which is what most mass market produced products contain, can't penetrate the skin's outer barrier. It sits on the surface, forms a temporary film, and creates the appearance of plumpness without actually doing anything structurally. Low molecular weight hyaluronic acid can penetrate deeper layers, and there is genuine data behind it. The other issue is that hyaluronic acid is a humectant. It draws moisture towards itself. In a dry climate or low humidity environments, if there's no moisture in the air to pull from it, it can actually draw water out of the deeper layers of your skin and worsen dryness. The ceramide-based approach Dr. Shapiro chose addresses the root cause, barrier integrity, rather than a temporary masking of the symptom.
So you went with more of an ingestible approach versus a topical approach.
Yeah.
Was that a difficult decision, or did you find, based on your personal experience, that one worked better than the other, or is it both need to be in place?
You need both. They do different things, right? Topicals are great for local issues, but again, they sit on top of your skin, right? And if we're talking about not just cosmetic issues, if we're talking about skin span, skin longevity, you have to give your body the building blocks, right? You have to give it the lipids, you have to give it things for energy, you have to give it the amino acids to be able to build, right?
Mhm.
So people get lasers, for example. Lasers are great, they're signals. Body receives the signal and then it builds, but you need building blocks, right?
Yeah,
And so the ingestible, what my product is meant to do is to give your body the building blocks.
gotcha. Okay. And on that note, are there some myths about some of the things in the space that you would like to see go away? You hear, take this collagen and, your skin and hair will be fine. And is there anything about that needs to be cleaned up, that message?
How much time do you have, Adam?
We have time.
So collagen is a really great topic. I can say a lot about it. So first of all, not all collagen is created equal, right? So you have two types of collagen. You have collagen from cows, bovine, and you have collagen from fish, marine. And within those two categories, it further breaks down. For marine collagen, it's wild caught or farm, right?
Mhm.
I don't think most people would want probably farmed, some farmed fish, probably farmed tilapia from some country. Probably not. And then within bovine, there's pastured and there's commercially kind of raised cattle. And we hear a lot about pastured. It's higher nutrients. It's just better for you. On top of that, there are different types of collagen, right? For skin, you need certain kinds. For joints, it's different kinds. But also the way collagen works, sometimes people think that if you take collagen, it just goes to your skin and it produces collagen and that's how it works. That's not true. Collagen, when you ingest it, it's basically a signaling mechanism for your fibroblasts to make more collagen. So and there's a reason why ingesting collagen and that particular sequence of amino acids, it goes to your skin. There's an affinity in the fibroblasts in the skin for these chains, these di and tripeptides. They have to be a certain molecular weight, right? For your body to be able to absorb them and carry them in the blood. And so a lot of times people take collagen, but it's not the right molecular weight. Other issue is that collagen, again, doesn't work in isolation, right? You need amino acids, you need vitamin C, you need lipids, you need mitochondrial energy for fibroblasts to lay down the healthy matrix. And without the full system, the single ingredients, yeah, maybe you'll see some modest results, but they often flatline, right? So that's why in my product, I include vitamin C because that helps to stabilize the collagen helix. I include zinc and selenium because they're used in the enzyme processes. And then, the rest of the formulation indirectly supports collagen formation.
Hmm. That's refreshing to hear, to clean that up and to understand that it's more of an immune stimulator or modulator to take collagen versus this magical ingestion of collagen that somehow finds its way to be collagen in your skin. I think a lot of people are just blindly following that, which, the way you describe it validates why collagen seems to help people. You can't doubt that, but to understand like how's it actually working is, kind of lands much stronger. Yes.
Let me unpack this a little bit more. What Dr. Shapiro just described as one of the most important, least understood mechanisms in the supplement space. When you ingest hydrolyzed collagen, it isn't absorbed as collagen and deposited directly into your skin. It is broken down into specific di- and tripeptides, small amino acid chains that travel through the bloodstream and act as signals to fibroblasts, the cells responsible for producing your skin's structural matrix. The key phrase there is specific peptides at specific molecular weights. This is why not all collagen supplements are equivalent. Molecular weight determines whether those peptides are actually absorbed through the gut wall. There's also an important caveat in the research. The majority of positive collagen trials have been funded by the collagen industry itself. Independent studies show more modest effects. The mechanism is real, but the marketing tends to outrun the evidence, which is exactly why formulation experts like Dr. Shapiro's matters.
I want to add one more thing. So the collagen that I'm using in my product, it's called Verisol, and it's a patented collagen from a company in Germany, Gelina. And why I'm using that collagen, it's more expensive than your generic collagen, right? Of course, it's trademark. But the reason why I'm using that particular collagen is because it has been studied extensively. It's the only collagen that has 7 human clinical trials for skin with good
Okay.
outcomes,
Yeah,
right?
that's very helpful.
That's
Yeah,
so matters.
yeah, it's always so reassuring when products are using ingredients that have been studied. It's like you can go back to those studies and reformulate or tweak or just learn, and gives you like a good solid foundation. Like again, like less guesswork. So even there's some discussions about the type of collagen. And before we leave this topic, I was wondering if you could just talk about like type 1 versus type 3, and does that really matter?
It depends on what your goals are. There are different collagens that's formulated for different.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of any brand that uses the Gelina collagens, and they have different formulations for bones, for joints, right? For recovery, for skin. And there are different brands out there that, for example, I take a collagen for joints and I add it to kind of my daily drink of mine because the collagen that I have in my drink is formulated for skin, right? But I want a joint support.
Gotcha. Something I've never heard a skin health expert bring up that you brought up is the importance of mitochondria. And I think that's really great that you brought that up because I mean, I think people who've listened to this podcast have been inundated with this message of mitochondria are like the heart of all chronic disease and also aging. And it's kind of really appreciated, I think, of how important mitochondrial health is. Did you find that when you were formulating the product that this was sort of at the center of the aging process like it is in other organs, or do you feel like it's sort of just part of that cluster you talked about?
I think it's the whole system shifting, sort of, right? Age with hormonal changes. And so you really have to look at the body holistically. And that's what I've done, look at skin holistically.
Yeah. Yeah. So classically, like in some skin formulations, we'll see things like glutathione and other antioxidants like alpha lipoic acid. I'm curious, with mitochondria, how are we able to support the skin? Like, is it just a kind of a classic mitochondrial approach like we've seen with other organs like CoQ10 and those other nutrients? Or do you find that the skin has better response to specific nutrients?
So cellular energy and renewal is at the
Hmm.
heart of skin health. So you have to keep it in mind. But it's interesting. You bring up antioxidants, and maybe we can take a little detour right now and
Yeah.
talk about antioxidants and oxidative stress a little bit. You bring up glutathione, which is a great master antioxidant. It's great. The problem is you really can't supplement with it because
Mm.
you still don't have a way to bring it inside the cells where it actually works, right? You have IVs, you have injections, you have liposomal formulations. Unfortunately, probably mostly ineffective. And you have to support the glutathione, the endogenous glutathione that your body produces through different ways. And so what I've done in my product is it's really the first multi-pathway, multi-antioxidant on the market.
Mm.
So we take multivitamins. Most of us are not deficient, but we take them. What we should really be taking is multi-antioxidants because also it's very difficult to get antioxidants from food, right? A lot of them are like astaxanthin, rose, and algae, right? I don't know how much algae you eat. I don't eat them,
Sure.
right? And but the antioxidant system in your body works like a network, like a
Let me unpack this a little bit more. What Dr. Shapiro just described is a concept called hormesis, the idea that a certain level of biological stress is actually necessary for the body to mount an adaptive response. Reactive oxygen species, or ROS, aren't purely damaging agents. In controlled amounts, they're signaling molecules that tell mitochondria and repair systems to kick into gear. When you megadose a single antioxidant like glutathione, sometimes you can bluntly signal that the body's repair machinery is doing fine when it actually isn't. We actually discussed this on a similar show episode with Dr. Jeffrey Novak. The takeaway isn't that antioxidants are bad, it's that balance and context determines whether they help or interfere. A networked, low-dose, multi-pathway approach is far more physiological coherent than flooding one node of the system.
system, right? So different antioxidants hand reactive oxygen species off to each other. And then minerals like zinc and selenium sit inside the enzymes that run those reactions, right? So again, full system. And
Right.
if you megadose one node in that network, so like let's say your body could absorb the glutathione and, you're supplementing with it. Well, what happens is if you ignore the partners like lipids and mitochondrial energy, right, you create a biochemical bottleneck. Some pathways are saturated while others are starving. Effects plateau, and they can actually impair adaptive signaling over time. And that's maybe I can dig into that. And I'm a little hesitant because I don't want it to sound like fear mongering, but I want to explain the mechanism because I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
High chronic doses of a single antioxidant can actually start to interfere with the very signaling and repair processes you actually want, right? High dose antioxidant supplements have been shown in some studies to blunt exercise-induced adaptations. And this is likely because a certain amount of reactive oxygen species is needed as a signal from muscles and mitochondria to get pieces. So the reactive oxygen species are not only damaging agents, they're also signaling molecules. Again, system. And over-suppressing one part of that ROS signal, especially without balancing nutrients like zinc and selenium that support endogenous antioxidant enzymes, can disturb the redox balance rather than fix it. And just to be clear, this effect is context-dependent, right? Exercise, metabolic stress, and it doesn't mean antioxidants are bad. What it means is that dose, balance, and context matter very much.
Let me unpack this a bit more. What Dr. Shapiro just described is a concept called hormesis, the idea that a certain level of biological stress is actually necessary for the body to mount an adaptive response. Reactive oxygen species, or ROS, aren't purely damaging agents. In controlled amounts, they're signaling molecules that tell mitochondria and repair systems to kick into gear. When you megadose a single antioxidant like glutathione, you can sometimes blunt that signal, essentially telling the body's repair machinery that everything is fine when it isn't. We actually discussed something similar on the episode with Dr. Jeffrey Novak. The takeaway isn't that antioxidants are bad, it's that balance and context determine whether they help or interfere. A networked, low-dose, multi-pathway approach is far more physiologically coherent than flooding one node of the system.
Very nice. It's reassuring that you aren't just throwing a bunch of trendy supplements together that, are marketable and sound people recognize and have heard they're good for them, but you're actually thinking about like the orchestration of these nutrients. And that's a really solid framework. And, I think with that, there's always going to be learning from the science and learning from new studies and tweaking and adjusting, but starting with, something that's designed to improve antioxidant status versus diminish it is really reassuring. So the other aspect of skin health that I'd like to kind of see if you have any insight on that we talk about on this podcast is just, the role of other aspects like dietary restrictions or chronic stress or even gut problems. Are you thinking about those in your approaches?
I am, because again, I'm taking a holistic view, right? And it's all interconnected. A lot of times you hear of people saying, yeah, I had crazy acne or I had rosacea, then I fixed my gut and all of that went away. Yeah, because it's one mechanism, right? It's one system. And so inevitably you have to think about it, right?
Yeah. And, it sounds like after kind of hearing your responses that you're sort of like a very pragmatic person. It's like the issue's here. How do we deal with it? You can't go back in time and undo the impact that certain things have had on your skin or to this point. So now like, here we are. How do we best support the body? And that's also very refreshing because, you're not spending a lot of time, shaming people for things they might have done in the past or, knowledge they didn't have. And you're focusing on, okay, how do we move forward with giving the skin and the whole organ system what it needs to remain healthy. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Being real.
And I was wondering if we could just hear a little bit more about your product and kind of where it's available and where people can purchase it. And just, it's been available since August and you've shared some success stories. What was some of the ones, maybe share a success story or two that has really made you feel like you're onto a good path?
Well, I'll share a story about myself. So when I was 43, I went and I got a Visio scan of my skin, and the Visio scan is what percentile you are in relation to women with your age and skin type. And it gives you metrics, right? Wrinkles, sunspots, pores, like it gives you it's a whole kind of output that they give you. And so when I came up with this cocktail and I sort of made it into the form where it is now, right? Where it's commercially available now. I took it every day for 12 weeks and I went and I rescanned my skin. And at that point I was 45. So I was 2 years older. And I have the results, the Visio scan results on my website. So anyone can go and see it. You see how dramatically fewer wrinkles I have. And I've never done a laser in my life. My topical routine is actually embarrassingly simple and bare bones. I was on Botox maybe 3 times in my whole life, right? This was purely just drinking this drink. And it's a pretty dramatic improvement.
Amazing.
It was the periorbital wrinkles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me unpack this a bit more for listeners who haven't encountered one. A Visio scan is a multispectral imaging system used in dermatology practices that photographs the face under different light conditions, including UV, to measure things that aren't visible to the naked eye. It quantifies 8 parameters: visible spots, wrinkles, texture, pore size, UV damage, subsurface brown spots, areas of redness or inflammation, and porphyrins, which are bacterial secretions in pores. Each score is expressed as a percentile against a database of over 250,000 people matched by age and skin type. What makes it clinically useful is that it's objective and reproducible. You can scan someone, run an intervention, scan again, and actually measure change. In the skin scan framework we've been discussing, the Vizia is essentially the instrument that turns a subjective sense of my skin looks better into trackable biological data. Dr. Shapiro's before and after results are on our website, and they're worth looking at.
That's so refreshing, because, you even across the hallway here, we have an aesthetic clinic, and to think that people are overlooking, this nutrient biochemical approach, biomedicine approach, just sort of going all for the procedures and injections, which, obviously you're not knocking those, but it's just really nice to hear like your N of one.
Yeah.
And yeah, so as far as availability and any kind of tips you can have for people to get started, how would they get started?
Yeah. So it's available online right now. It's available in a few retail locations around San Diego, but it's mostly online. So it's atikawellness.com or atikawellness.com. And I'm sure you'll link it to the show notes. And it's, it's the one product because again, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I did not mean to do this.
Yeah.
It's this one product that I'm proud of, that people are seeing great results. And you can try it for a month, or this is a longer term game. So I really suggest that people, if they're going to try it, I suggest committing to at least 3 months because these repair mechanisms, they take time. It's not weeks, it's months and years. It was work. And so, yeah, anyone can buy it. It's available.
Yeah. Any precautions that people should be aware of before getting started?
So the ceramides are wheat derived, but they do strip out the allergens. So it is gluten free, but that's just something to keep in mind. And then I do add MCT oil, and that's to enhance the bioavailability of the fat soluble vitamins, right? I have collagen in there, I've got vitamin D, right? Astaxanthin, all of these things, they need fat to enhance absorption. And so I included MCT oil, which is coconut derived. So
And how does it taste?
it's like a citrusy taste. The one consistent feedback that I've gotten is people are very surprised at how delicious it is.
Okay.
And that was really important to me because I struggled with taking the pills. I didn't want to struggle with drinking the drink. And so it took a long time actually to come to this taste profile. And it's really very nice. It's a little sweet, even it's sugar free. Does taste a little sweet and kind of tart.
Great. And it seems like you're really into education. Is there things that you do for the people who start on this journey with you to help them continue to learn about their skin health?
Yeah, so that's really my main kind of passion is the education piece of it. And I lean fully into it. So I'm writing a lot of articles actually that people are finding very helpful. And those come out weekly on my website in the journal section. I also post on LinkedIn a lot, just kind of thoughts and little like 1-minute video clips on
Yeah.
topics. The theme for this week is GLP-1s, one and Ozempic phase, and
Yeah.
the biological.
I saw that. Yeah.
And yeah. On social media, we post a lot of the content is mostly educational actually on social media. So we're
Great.
leaning into that. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, this has been really wonderful speaking with you. Perhaps we can close with some take-home messages or one or two messages that you'd like to leave us with.
Yeah, sure. So I guess the message I would say is if you're seeing any sort of your body is communicating with you, right? If you're seeing changes, whether it's skin or other organ areas, it's your body, it's not failing you, it's communicating with you. And maybe changing how you listen could shift the relationship from conflict to partnership, right?
Very helpful. Yeah. And, it's nice to know that you've created a way to have nutritional partnership with your skin, and, just really understanding what it needs. And you've even gone further to make sure that your background in biochemistry is really shining through so that, people can trust what they're taking and know that it's not going to throw something else out of balance.
Okay.
So, well, thanks for being here and please keep in touch with us.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the One Thing Podcast. Please share these episodes with your friends, loved ones, colleagues, patients, healthcare providers, anyone who you feel might benefit from hearing these informative interviews. We tend to learn best from people sharing things with us. That's often the first time it's introduced. So don't hesitate if the content of these episodes reminded you of someone that might benefit from it. Forward the episode to them, and I'm sure they'll either appreciate it or be appreciative that you've thought of them. So once again, we'll look forward to seeing you next episode on the One Thing Podcast. And again, much appreciation for you being here with me.